you study enough, you're like, oh my God, it's so complex, and you can just dive deeper and it's never ending. It just dives deeper and deeper, right? Proteins become amino acids, become chains of carbon and nitrogen. It just keeps going. And all of a sudden you just pull all the way back, and it's almost like an epiphany, and you just sort of fly back out, and you're like, oh, it's food. It's all food.
You're listening to Inside Acting, a podcast dedicated to demystifying the inner and outer game of success in the entertainment industry. I'm Trevor Algatt.
And I'm AJ Meyer. And in episode 306, we feature part one of Trev's conversation with the godfather of the modern-day intermittent fasting movement, Brad Pilon. Brad is a nutritionist and sports science writer, best known for his seminal book on fasting, Eat, Stop, Eat. He's also the author of Thin Air, How Much Protein, and Good Belly, Bad Belly. And today, we hear about how Brad's journey began, from his original inspiration through his graduate work studying the effects of fasting to his epiphanies around food, lifestyle, fitness, and more. It's a deep dive. Stay with us.
Support for this episode of Inside Acting is brought to you in part by Rehearsal Pro. The current version of Rehearsal, an essential app for actors, is now available in the iOS App Store for your iPod Touch, iPhone, or iPad, your iOS device. So guys, if you want to learn your lines, be off book for your auditions, explore your character, make bold, strong choices quickly, effectively, book the office every time, do a whole bunch more, go to rehearsal.pro/IAP right now, where you can learn all about the kick-ass new features in this newest version of Rehearsal, a groundbreaking app designed specifically by actors, specifically for actors. It is a must-have tool for your toolkit. That's rehearsal.pro/IAP.
Hey, Trev. What's up, buddy?
What's up, man? Hey, so where are you?
Where are you? I knew you were going to ask me that. I'm like, before we started recording for our listeners, I was like, I'm in a house and I'm in a room. And he's like, what? What's going on? Yes, I'm in San Francisco. I am up here with the Jewish Women's Theater, and I was thinking about it. And the last time I was up here, we recorded an episode. It was actually a quarterly review a little over a year ago. And it was right after that trip that, like, we were driving back to LA and our car broke down, and we ended up getting a new car, and I got all these plans that got upended. So here we are. It feels very similar.
You're back, full circle.
I know, right? I know. Yeah. So that's where I am. I'm in San Francisco.
So have you done shows? Are you on the tail end of this trip, or are you just beginning?
Just beginning. I just got here last night, and I have my first show this evening in Marin, and then I have a show tomorrow night in Palo Alto, and then Jasmine and I will be driving back, probably along the coast. We'll see. We have not made like specific plans, but always love to come up here, spend time in the city. It's also why I sound different. If we have any audio files, like Trevor listening to the episode, I am using the Apple good old Apple headphones to record this episode. So.
And so this is the same show that you've been working on, and you've got two performances, but it's the same play, but in a different location each time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's sort of their game. They do salon style theater, and they perform. We've been performing in people's homes, their main space in Santa Monica, synagogues, and these two shows are at two JCCs up here. So it's always interesting, and I really like working with them. I have not admitted this to them yet, but I did forget my guitar. And had to source one being up here. But as a friend of a friend said last night, I picked a really good city to forget guitar in. Like, I'm in San Francisco. I think it's going to be okay. I have friends up here. I had a lot of people reach out on social media, like, it's going to be fine. And then push comes to shove. If worst case scenario, I can always go to like Guitar Center and buy something and then return it a few days later.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So you've been at this game for a while, doing a lot of like live theater. You've traveled a lot, done a lot of regional stuff. And just the fact that you forgot the guitar and you're like, no big deal, I got this. That struck me because your relationship to the work feels so much more mature and professional now. There's no like freak out that I sense in your voice, or in your character these days. How would you say things have changed for you over the years, going on this journey, all over the sort of Western seaboard, as it were, doing these jobs and having something like a guitar, like a major prop forgotten, not be an issue?
Well, I mean, before I answer your question, I have to admit that there was this moment, because when I realized it, I was actually on the plane descending into San Francisco, and I had in-flight Wi-Fi, and I was texting Jasmine like, oh my God, I forgot. So the freak out happened, but it didn't last for very long. I will say that. So it definitely happened. I definitely had a moment of freak out, and then I just breathed and relaxed, and I sort of thought exactly what I said before, which is that I picked a really good, city to forget a guitar in. There's going to be a solution, and I know that there's going to be a solution. It's just a matter of making it happen. As far as answering your question, I think that just comes from experience. I don't know that there's any other way to, I could sit here and talk about all the tools that I've used over the years, like, meditation and preparation and all of that. And I'm not saying that those things are not a factor. I'm simply saying that it's just like with auditioning. For instance, I'll tell you the story. I was telling this story to Jasmine yesterday. I went to this commercial audition a few days ago, and there was this guy there who was auditioning for the same thing I was, and he was probably maybe 5 years younger than me. So we're talking like, late 20s-ish, maybe early 30s. And he was, you could tell there was just this energy about him that was like this really excited energy. And he had with him this, those hangers with like the suit cover that you get. There's probably a name for this that I don't know, and I feel kind of dumb, but like you unzip it and like your suit comes out, and you put so it seemed as though he had just gotten his suit jacket dry cleaned or something. And so he had it in one of those bags, and he pulled it out and he put it on. He was like dressed really well for this audition. And what he was wearing was not, it was for like a bouncer. So what he was wearing was not off base, but I could tell just by looking at him and his energy and the sort of the choices they had made in wardrobe and what he was bringing to the audition with him, he had put in a lot of thought, effort, and energy into what was ultimately going to be a less than 30-second audition, because it was for a commercial. And I looked at him, and this was not a judgment. It wasn't a bad thing. It just was me noticing, just an observation. I went, that used to be me. I remember going out and buying, this is a true story. I bought a $100 jacket for a non-union music video audition that I was in for maybe 15 seconds. They lined us up, and they went down the line and asked us like some stupid autobiographical question, which happens a lot in commercial auditions these days. And I answered it, and that was it. That was the entire audition. Of course, I didn't get a call back, and I didn't book it. And I just remember, and I was telling, Jasmine about all this last night, this sort of recollection of being that person. And I think we have to go through that. We have to go through that so that we build up this experience of being at an audition and knowing what our job is. Like most of the other guys that were there, besides me and actually this guy, were huge because it's for a bouncer. So these guys were like massive, taller than me. I'm 6'3". There were guys that were like 6'6", super broad-shouldered, just big dudes. And I'm looking around and I'm going, if I'm going to book this, it's going to be because of my acting. Not because of, I know that commercials are a face lottery, but that's the only thing I could possibly have on any of these guys as far as this role is concerned, is to be a good actor. And I went in and I felt really good about it. And the guy who was running the session said those reads were perfect. Back to back. I did 2 back to back. He's like, those were great reads. Like, so good. Great job. And I know he's not the final decision maker, but I did my sort of acting thing. And anyway, this all comes full circle to I know it's a long-winded way of answering your question, but I wouldn't be able to have that sort of comfort in the room if it wasn't for experience. And I don't know that there's any other way to get to that other than, I think it was Ben Whitehair that said you have to audition 500 times before you can feel that way.
Yeah.
And there's no easy way to get 500 auditions. You have to either be, busting your hump to make it happen yourself, or busting your hump to get representation to help you. And then you're both working at it. You're still doing a lot for yourself, and they're doing it. So I don't know. Did I even answer your question at the end of
absolutely.
At the end of all this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that answer because it just cuts back to, it actually fits well with sort of what the philosophy that Brad has developed over the years that we'll hear about later in the episode during the interview portion. But it's like there are no shortcuts. Like, there is nothing that replaces hard work, mundane repetition, discipline, rigor. It's just the only way through is through. And we live in this society where it's like, it's a hacking society. Everybody's like obsessed with like hacking and shortcuts and how to get massive results with the least amount of effort. And I think that there's stuff to explore there. But at the end of the day, it always comes back to like the time-tested truth of you just got to do the work. You got to do the work. I'm sorry. Like, yes, we live in an era of lasers and pills, but you still got to do the work.
Lasers and pills. Oh my God, lasers and pills, bro. Patent or you need to copyright that. You know what this is reminding me of? I remember when I was roommates with our former producer, Nelson Murray, and I remember it was right around the time, like, he sort of introduced me to the whole like Tim Ferriss, body hacking like thing, but he was not obsessive. That was not his thing. He was just like you, Trevor, sort of interested in it. Right. He, once I will never forget this moment. We were hanging out at home and I was looking at, I think 4 Hour Body, right? Tim Ferriss's book. And I was looking at all of these different like supplements and stuff that he was taking. And I remember like looking them up online, and I was going to, make a special trip to GNC. And I was talking to Nelson and I was like, what do you think I should get? Like, do you think I should like get this thing or this pill or this supplement or whatever? And he looked at me and just like super calm and not in any sort of judgmental way. He said, AJ, get a multivitamin and go to the gym. And like, I was sort of embarrassed because I had allowed myself to sort of get caught up in the sort of body hacking thing that, he will admit he sort of introduced me to. So, I'm not placing blame. It's just like funny how this sequence of events, occurred. But I will never forget that. So like, go to the gym was like it's sort of an analogy, right? For
it's
doing
like
the work.
Yeah. It's the ultimate fitness hack. Lift weights, do resistance training, get your heart rate up. Works every time.
Fitness hack, go to the gym. You know what? I hate to cut this conversation short, but ironically, there is a segue here to one of the couple of announcements that we have. Because if anyone is going to tell you that the only way to get better is to, tell yourself that you're not getting the job and do the work, it's Michael Kostroff.
Amen.
Right? Like I feel like what we're talking about in terms of auditions is everything that Audition Psych 101 is about, right?
Yeah.
So we have this announcement, and I think Trev, you put this in here, so you know a little bit more. I just know what's on the screen here, but do you want to tell our listeners about what what's coming up here in LA?
Absolutely. So if you guys are listening and the name Michael Kostroff is not ringing a bell, or you're not familiar with his name, go back in our feed and listen to, well, I think we've had him on twice now, Michael Kostroff's episodes, and each interview was a two-part interview. Michael Kostroff is a very prolific working actor, film, television, theater, and just the kindest, gentlest, most wonderful soul you could ever hope to meet. And he created a workshop, or a sort of audition approach, called Audition Psychology 101. It's the simplest, most life-changing thing you could possibly imagine. And it's coming back to Los Angeles. So if you're in LA and you're listening to this and you have not taken Audition Psych 101 yet, get thee to North Hollywood on Thursday, April 5th. There's going to be two offerings of this workshop, one at 11 a.m. and one at 6 p.m. Again, that's Thursday, April 5th, coming right up, at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. at the Crown City Theater in North Hollywood. And this is a live workshop. It will be recorded, but the good news is, since they're going to be doing that, you can get a 30% discount. It's a pretty sweet Inside Acting special price. So there's a special page that you can only find if you use our link. We're not getting a kickback from this or anything. This is just something we think every actor should experience. Go to insideacting.net/101, as in Audition Psychology 101, insideacting.net/101 to get access to that discount. Book your spot Thursday, April 5th, 11 a.m. or 6 p.m. Maybe 3-4 hours is the amount of time you'd want to book for this, but it's in North Hollywood. Just check it out, man. If you haven't experienced it yet, it will change your game. So, head over again one more time, insideacting.net/101 to reserve your spot on Thursday, April 5th, either 11 or 6 at the Crown City Theater in North Hollywood for the Audition Psych workshop. It's a game changer. It really is.
Support for this episode of Inside Acting is also brought to you in part by VO2GoGo.com, the award-winning voiceover training system and winner of Backstage's Reader's Choice Award for Best VO Training 4 years in a row. Visit VO2GoGo.com/start for a free Getting Started in Voiceover online class that'll help you add voiceover to your acting portfolio. That's VO2GoGo.com/start.
Okay, so here is part one of my conversation with Mr. Brad Pilon. Guys, this was such a joy to sit down and chat to Brad. It was via Skype. He lives up in Canada. Obviously, we did it via Skype. I didn't fly up there. We don't have that kind of budget right now, but maybe someday. But man, it was such a cool conversation. I'm always interested in the sort of, what's happening behind the curtain when it comes to diet and fitness and nutrition, and Brad writes extensively about this stuff. He's got several books, just a few of which we talk about in this interview and named in the teaser for this. But if you are at all interested in nutrition and are looking for just the simplified way to approach some of the complex issues we deal with in the entertainment industry, things like what to eat, how to eat, when to eat, how to change my relationship that I have with my body when I look in the mirror. Do I like what I see? Do I not like what I see? That's kind of what this conversation is about, and it goes pretty deep. It doesn't necessarily follow a linear structure. I think you'll really, really enjoy this. So buckle in, get ready for a fun ride through the psychology of food as well as the biology of food and fasting and fitness, and we'll catch you on the other side. As you know, we're a podcast that's focused on the entertainment industry, specifically the journey of actors and filmmakers and sometimes models and things like that as they sort of, move to La La Land and make their way through the industry and the various things that come up. And when we first started this podcast, it was very much about like, the nuts and bolts stuff. Like, how do I get in the room? What should I do about my headshots? What are some good audition techniques? And as it's gone on, it's really evolved to be more about the inner game. What kind of person do I need to build myself into in order to have a successful, long career in this industry, which can be pretty brutal sometimes. And a big sort of thing that comes up quite a bit is ageism and body issues and health. Of course, people in LA are either all on board and they're going gluten free and they're trying all the crazy superfoods, or they just hate their bodies and they're just resigned to being miserable. And what I really love about your work is that it for me at least, it helps sort of reset my relationship to food. I just find that you have a very sort of flexible, mature relationship to eating, and you laid out in your book, you just stop eating every once in a while. It's not that big a deal. People have been doing it forever. So we're rolling. I guess we might as well just jump into this.
All right, let's do this. Yeah.
I love your work. I'm a big fan. I've been following you since 2009 or so, I think.
Oh wow! So one of the originals. I got going around 06, so that's good.
Yeah. I had one of the very first editions of Eat Stop Eat, and it was a real game changer for me. And I've sort of dipped in and out of it as I've experimented with all sorts of diets. But as I said, it really helps me sort of reset my relationship to food. And I find myself every once in a while slipping into a toxic relationship with food. And on a recent podcast that I listened to with you, you talked about having a bit of a revelation sitting on the couch and like stuffing like a whole bag of cookies in your mouth or something like that.
Oreos, yeah.
Can you tell that story, and maybe we can lead into a bit of how you really got involved in becoming a sports science and nutrition writer?
Yeah, well, they're different stories. So let's start with the sports science, mostly because it probably relates to a lot of your listeners, right? But it was I'm 40, going to be 41 this July. And so for anybody roughly that age, you'll remember Lou Ferrigno playing the Incredible Hulk on TV, which interestingly turned into David Banner and not Bruce Banner for whatever reason. And that was my my memory of watching that show with my dad, and just, rightly or wrongly, when there was trouble, it was solved by just turning into the bigger male, right?
Yeah.
But that's what got me into that was an actor. We didn't even have CGI, right? We had that or crappy claymation back then. So it was really amazing when my dad was like, no, that's, other than the green paint, that's what that guy Lou Ferrigno looks like, right? And I was hooked from there. And so from, I guess, super young age was into the idea of bodybuilding, but was not in any way, shape, or form a bodybuilder. So to give you an idea, again, we talked briefly about how I live in Canada. I wasn't actually allowed to play hockey. I didn't even learn how to skate until I was in my early 20s because my parents thought I was too small, right? So genetically not a gifted, going to turn into a bodybuilder, but in love with it all the same. And so that led me more along the lines of, if you can't do, teach, right? So I got into learning about sports science at just an incredibly young age, and then trying to figure out, what I would have to do to possibly be as big as the guys who are just naturally big. So from age, I want to say 10 to 12, somewhere in that range, I had a subscription to the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. So I had no clue. The guy was reading it, and I spent half the time looking up the words. And this is like pre-Google, right? So I'm dictionarying and encyclopediaing it. It was crazy. Let me just put that off there.
It's nuts. You said you're 10 or 12 years old and you had a subscription to this high-level sort of science magazine. Yeah.
And it was sort of always a love, the biology of it, right? The learning aspect of it is what I really enjoyed. And so I think by 14, 15, I was working in just like a local supplement shop, selling sports supplements, whether they're fat loss or muscle building. And so I knew that side of I'm going to call it science. No, we'll say that side of the story, right? The marketing aspect of the science, how people themselves are really interested in the science if you explain it properly. If you don't, their eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The word's too big, or you're too excited or not excited enough, you lose them. And that got me kind of interested into not just the science of it, but how to explain or have a dialogue with someone about something you're really interested in, which is the science, in a way that makes them interested.
Dude, that's the story of my life right there. Yeah,
exactly. Right.
Yeah,
because you know, like my family doesn't ever want to hear me talk ever again. They're tired of it. So from there, I went to a degree in nutrition, and I left from my degree in nutrition and worked in the supplement industry for 6.5, almost 7 years.
And let me just stop you. What were you doing in the supplement industry specifically? R&D.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. So running the research and development department. I was lucky enough. I got in with a company that was just a good company, right? One of the ones that says, you know, for every dollar of this, a portion of every sale goes towards their multi-million-dollar research budget. But they weren't lying. They actually had this massive research budget that you could just sort of spend, right? Back when supplements just made a lot of money. And so you could take a portion of a couple $1 million and throw it towards research. And that's what this company was doing. So, you know, just by pure luck, I was still in a learning situation even while working. Cool. And then, and then I got bit by the bug, right? Because you're sort of surrounded by research all the time. That made me want to go back to school. I go back to school at, 29. So I like to call it my quarter life crisis. You know, who wants a paying job and stability? Let's go back into grad work. And I ended up studying fasting. And this is like 05, 06, when fasting was definitely not a thing, when you had to eat every 3 hours, right? Where you'd literally die. Your metabolism would stop and you just die.
Right, yeah.
And it was such an odd thing to study that I carved out a little niche for it when I was done, because nobody was writing about it. So I took what I'd learned way back when working the supplement shop about how to discuss science with people to make it interesting. And I took my graduate thesis and kind of rewrote it. And that was probably the version of Eat Stop Eat that you bought.
I got a new version of Eat Stop Eat at one point, and it was included with that was, I think, the Zen of Nutrition or a sort of smaller manifesto, as it were.
Yeah, exactly.
And you said something that completely baked my noodle in that short ebook that I've had to go back and reread several times because it just changed my world. You said something like, there's a Zen saying,
yes,
that before enlightenment, mountains are mountains, rivers are rivers, and trees are trees. While you're becoming enlightened, mountains are no longer mountains, rivers are no longer rivers, and trees are no longer trees. And then after enlightenment, once you've achieved enlightenment, mountains are once again mountains, rivers once again rivers, trees once again trees. And you said if you just replace the word enlightenment, or maybe it was Zen was the word that was used. If you replace that word with nutrition, that's basically been your journey. You've basically done all the research, all the science, and what it comes down to is that it's a complex system. There's so many variables. Just enjoy your food and don't eat too much.
There's unlimited variables, and that's the hard part, right? So, when you're a child, food is just food, right? There's some you like, some you don't like. A little bit of that is learned, right? So I think you learn at a young age that Brussels sprouts and broccoli are gross just because of other kids and TV shows, the ew reaction.
Right.
But they're food, right? Then when you start studying them, they're not food anymore. They're proteins, carbs, fats, they're calories, they're microminerals, they're combinations. They're not food. You view them as their substances, as the things they're made of. But then if you study enough, you're like, oh my God, it's so complex, and you can just dive deeper and it's never ending. It just dives deeper and deeper, right? Proteins become amino acids, become chains of carbon and nitrogen. It just keeps going. And all of a sudden you just pull all the way back, and it's almost like an epiphany, and you just sort of fly back out, and you're like, oh, it's food.
Yeah.
It's all food.
Yeah.
Right? And so if I can enjoy my food the way I kind of enjoyed it before I started learning about it, then I'm probably in a place where I can do this and just sort of eat responsibly. And it's something we talk about a lot. But, when you're, let's say, a teen, right, and you an early teen, so you're still maybe either going out for Halloween or you're raiding your younger brother or sister's stash, right? And you can eat it all in a night, and you probably might even puke, right? Like you're just like, that was 1.5 pounds of jelly beans. It was not a good idea, right? So we've all done something similar. We're at a birthday party, had like 5 pieces of cake, right? Like we've done that. And the thing to remember is that we've had our turn doing that, right? So we can go back to viewing food as food and just realizing we kind of have to eat like responsible adults now. Like we're not growing in height anymore. We're just growing in width, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't have that excuse. We can just sort of eat responsibly, but enjoy your food. And it's just so much of a better journey with very, very similar results that there's no reason to do the more complex version.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a great segue to this story about you sitting on the couch and just downing that whole bag of cookies, because we often, eat responsibly is great, but that's so much tougher to do in practice. It
is. And we're taught, the cookie story is an interesting one too for me, because I've had multiple events like that one, I'm sorry to say. But it's odd because sometimes they're not an out of control craving. Sometimes they've been logicked. And what I do is I logic in the magic of it. And I'm still looking for magic in food, right? I'm still thinking if I eat a ton, well, maybe I did have a couple hard workouts. I need to recover, right? Or it's like, yeah, I'm gonna just, this won't count. And just sit there going, like, it counts, and you don't need to recover. And it just, you need to stop doing this, right? You can have a cookie. There's nothing wrong with having a cookie. You can probably get away with having 2, maybe even 4. You just can't eat the entire bag yourself while watching TV. That's all I'm really telling myself, right? It's like, maybe that's not the best idea. And it's so funny because we want such a complex explanation of not even what to do, because we don't want the what to do to be complex. We want the why do it to be complex. And it just doesn't need to be. And that was sort of a fundamental lesson for me, was realizing that I like to think of it this way, is that learning the names we've given to all the hormones in our body and all the metabolic pathways, et cetera, doesn't change what they do, right? When we were 7 and didn't know the names of anything, right, of consequence, they did the same thing they do now that we can name, testosterone and androgen receptors and all that kind of insulin and growth hormone. We've got names for it all. It doesn't change the fact they're doing exactly what they were doing anyways, right? Yeah. So there's no need to get that deep.
God, that is such a trip. That's so funny. I'm like you. I want to know how everything. I want to look behind the curtain and see how all the machinery works.
Because we think that the better we understand it, the better it'll work, right? Or maybe we can actually grasp it and control it. And it just rarely does it work that way. And we like to think that we're all physically equal, that we have the same physical potential, right? That if we just knew the secrets of those people who just look the way we want to look, that we could also look like that. And that's what kind of drives it, right? Is the idea that physically we're all made of the same sort of clay. And if we just knew how that guy or girl shaped their clay, we could do the same thing. But it's more, there is an innate giftedness that some people have, just like intelligence, right? So I like to say, like, Elon Musk didn't just take a smart drug or work a bit harder than me in school, right? Like he was smarter than me to begin with, and he worked harder than I ever would want to take full advantage of that giftedness. And that's the intellectual giftedness, right? So physically, it's the same thing. I could go back in time and I could hire a personal trainer. I'd invest all my money in Apple, come out of it at the, 14, 15 loaded, put all my money into having a trainer and a bunch of NFL experts to teach me how to play football, and I'll take all the drugs in the world. You're not going to see me in the NFL. Right. There's a physical giftedness those people have that I don't, but I have my own gifts, and that's what I got to work with. So trying to think that if we could just understand the human body more and more and more to the point where we could manipulate these things without any side effects, of course, right? Then we could look the way we want to look. You pick your favorite action star right now and be like, oh, I just need to figure out, if I can just figure out what Chris Hemsworth did, then in a matter of mere months, I too could be 6'3" with a sexy Australian accent, right? Like it's not going to change that. I'm still going to be 5'10" and Canadian, right? So it was just letting go of that and realizing I can work with the generalities of knowing how to lose fat and how to build muscle. And then I'm just going to be happy with the results that I get from me. And then realize that past that general concept, all this extra ideas, all these extra sort of things you can do are more just trying to find a group of people you can fit in with, right? It's to find a diet that's fun and trendy and keeps your interest, and less to do with like finding the actual magic that'll make something happen other than just hard work in a gym and consistent responsible eating.
Yeah. Oh man, I have about 15 questions that came up while you were chatting there. I'm curious, total sidebar, and I'm not asking you to make any enemies here, but what do you think of the ketogenic diet?
Oh, okay. So really cool. okay, so you got the sidebar, so now I'm going to take us on a trip.
Okay.
All right. So if we ignore calories, because calories are ridiculously hard to understand, honestly, like I know people are like, no, they're easy. I'm like, no, they are not, because most people think of a calorie as energy that then gets turned into matter in your body, and that matter gets turned back into energy. Like we're talking Star Trek transporter technology, right? That's how abstract you have to be. So let's forget calories and think of your fat. Like if I just grab a handful of fat, that's mostly carbon, right? The fatty acids are nothing more than chains of carbon molecules. So that's carbon. It's what it's made of. Your food is mostly water and carbon, right? So when you eat, you're mostly consuming water. We're going to ignore the water. So we're mostly consuming carbon, just chains of carbon. And those chains of carbon get turned into or used like Lego bricks to make various components of your body, right? Whether it's muscle or fat or enzymes or hormones or your stomach or your liver. And then if you eat too much carbon, more than you need to make those things, you store it as fat, right? It's nice and simple. So we can forget calories. Now, a carbohydrate is carbon. And then a fat or a hydrocarbon is also carbon. So you're still consuming carbon. You're still consuming something that gets turned into various components of your body. And if you eat too much of it, it gets turned into fat. So the ketogenic diet has a lot of benefits in that you will see rapid fat loss in the very beginning, right?
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just to clarify for our listeners, ketogenic diet is kind of like Atkins 2.0, right? It's you limit your carbohydrate intake.
Limit your carbs as much as possible and replace them with fat as much as possible. And then the debate on ketogenic diet is really just comes down to how much protein. Some people think it should be low. Some people think you can get away with slightly higher, right? But the generality of it is a high fat, very low carbohydrate diet.
Right. Okay.
But see, you're still consuming stuff, right? And so I think some things happen here is one, it's kind of like the ultimate bait and switch, in my opinion. I know a lot of people love keto, but if I go to you and I'm like, dude, I've got a diet for you, and get this, you're going to lose weight and you get to eat like bacon and eggs and sausage. You're going to be like, hell yeah, that sounds awesome. And then there's little asterisks with a sidebar. It's like, oh, by the way, man, that's the only stuff you get to eat. Right. And you're like, wait, what? I'm like, no, nothing. You get to eat bacon and steak and just never any carbs again for the rest of your life. And you're like, wait, I heard you say something. Right? Like, okay. So it's a bit of a bait and switch. So some things happen here is that there's a rapid fat loss in the beginning, or at least a rapid weight loss. That just happens in most studies. That's kind of consistent. And then by the end of, let's say, 6 to 8 months, the fat loss kind of evens out in the studies. I think it's because it's fairly hard to eat a lot of just fat. And I'll give you a great example of that. Like a 24-ounce ribeye steak. It's pretty impressive, right? Like that's a big steak. And then you go on to your websites or the USDA food database, and you're like, I wonder how many calories is in a 24-ounce steak. So you're like, okay, I'm going to look up a ribeye steak, and it's going to be some sort of just insane amount of calories. But the problem is the 24 ounces was raw, right? And so 24 ounces raw might have, let me think here. I'm going to guess at maybe 1,000 calories, maybe 1,200. But it's about an 18-ounce steak when it gets served on your plate.
Right.
And that's because the fat drips off.
Yeah.
You lose water, but you also lose a fair amount of fat. As you heat it up, the fat liquefies, drops in. It's the thing that causes the giant flames in your barbecue when you're not paying attention. So a 24-ounce raw steak is actually like maybe an 18-ounce non-raw steak, and it's a lot less calories than you may think. It really is funny, but it's even a fatty steak grilled to medium, it's not as calorie dense as you may think. So there's some fun with math that goes on with the ketogenic diet, it's specifically with grilling meat, right? Like that doesn't happen with eggs or cups of dairy, cups of full cream, that kind of crap. But with steak, it has that effect. So a ketogenic diet is a diet that you can do that will cause weight loss as long as, and this is kind of my fun caveat, the amount of total carbon, forget calories, total carbon you eat is less than the amount of total carbon that leaves your body, right? Because the calories are that weird thing where people are like, but I think they leave as heat or something like that. But we know, because we've all taken like grade 9 science, that matter, like carbon, it can't be destroyed, right? It's either there or it's not. And so carbon comes in through your food. And here's the really fun part. It leaves your body through your breath, right? Your CO2 that you breathe out, that carbon dioxide, those carbons are the ones that's where your fat goes. Once your fat's been quote unquote burnt, it's just long carbon chain to cut down to smaller carbons until they're carbon dioxide, and you breathe them out. So the actual biology, and this gets back all the way to our sort of Zen talk. I mean, the actual biology is ridiculously simple, right? It's like carbon in through your food and your drink, and carbon out through breathing. So we'll just sometimes just keep breathing, and sometimes breathe a little harder because you're exercising, and that's it. So the ketogenic diet does have evidence that it is a fat loss promoting diet, like almost any other diet. It's not outside of the rule of those carbon molecules that have a specific known weight have to go somewhere. So they're either being breathed out or they're being stored, just like any other carbon.
Yeah, and this is interesting because I'm hearing sort of once learning about this, I can see why you would be exploring some of the topics of your other books, like Thin Air, which is about the carbon in the atmosphere and in our environments and how that affects our physiology, as well as Good Belly, Bad Belly, which is all about gut health. I haven't read either of those books, disclaimer, but I can see how this would inform those, because now you've got all these other variables, including like the enzyme, content in the food and how much sleep you got. So how does the food interact with a body that's sleep deprived, and
exactly
what else are you eating with it and things like that.
Yeah, you've nailed it. So because the actual biology is simple, but because the variables are unlimited, that's, I think, where we have to look. So the good thing about my books is, most of them can be summed up in a couple sentences, and I just ramble on in the book explaining it. So thin air is a very simple concept that, we worry about outdoor CO2 levels, right? That's kind of the argument for or against climate change. And, experts out there worry that when we hit like 420 parts per million, that, it affects human physiology negatively. And it got me thinking, I'm like, I wonder what it is indoors. And the indoors, insane. Like my house was at 1,000.
Really? You measured your house?
Yeah, you can get a CO2 monitor from co2meter.com. And I actually just bought one and travel around with it. It's ridiculously simple. It looks like an alarm clock. Like that's how simple it is. And I just plugged it in, and so I looked at the research, and it was basically suggesting that 600 is kind of an appropriate cutoff, right? Like for indoor air. And anything above that, you're going to feel, depending on how sensitive you are, because everybody's a bit more sensitive, but at, let's say 1,000, you're going to feel tired, lethargic, fatigued. And so I was thinking, like, well, if you really want to lose weight, you're like, I'm going to exercise, like I'm going to be active. And you spend all day in some crappy office where the CO2 levels are like 2,000. And then you drive home in your car and who knows what the levels are there. And then you get home into your house and the levels are, let's say, 1,500. You're just exhausted all the time. And I'm sitting there telling you, no, man, go work out. You got to be active. And you're like, I don't have the energy to be active, you asshole. Right? And I wanted to look at why. And then we started realizing your CO2 levels can be highest in the bedroom, right? Because you sleep in a bedroom. Typically you have like the windows and the door closed when you sleep. And that affects your sleep quality. And we do know that sleep quality affects your ability to gain or lose weight for whatever reason. It might be that you eat more. It might be that you're up. But these little weird variables matter. And then the problem with a lot of them, especially the CO2 levels in your house or your work, is you can't see it, so you don't really care. Right? Like it's really funny that pitching the idea to people that one of the better things you could do for your health is open a window. They want it to be complex, right? They're like, no, I need to eat a specific amount of blueberries for every piece of steak I eat, divided by the amount of orange juice and cream. Like, no, just open a window and you'll feel better, right? Go for a walk. Like if you're really hungry right now, here's something really cool to do. Leave your house and go for a walk. I don't care if you live in maybe LA is different, but like downtown most city centers, the air outside is better than the air in your house for CO2 levels. There's just more air to disperse because if you live, let's say in Canada like me or even LA, anywhere hot, your houses are made to be airtight. right? Because you don't want to, in my case, lose heat, in your case, lose air conditioning, right? So it's different when you live on a tropical island and you're using the breeze to cool your house, and your house has been architecturally designed to take advantage of the trade winds or whatever it may be. When you live, in a major city center in North America, your house is designed to be airtight so that you don't waste money heating or cooling the outside air.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So air in your house sucks if you don't have a window open. Anybody who's ever shared a hotel room with 6 buddies on a drinking night knows it's like you're not sleeping well, and it's not the booze. It's the fact you have 6 people just exhaling CO2, bringing up the levels as much as possible for the 8 or 9 hours you're sleeping. So that was my sort of quest with that, was looking at something completely invisible, which is the carbon dioxide in the air.
Yeah.
And if you can manipulate that, could you feel less fatigued, less exhausted, less migraines, less tired, less hungry, have better sleeps? If you're less tired, you're more active. If you're less hungry, hopefully you're eating less. If you're having better sleep, that ties in too, right? So there's just, I hate to use the word holistic. It's been sort of stolen and used to describe other things, but I guess there's so many variables in your life that contribute to your ability to gain weight or lose weight. It's not just the exact specific ratio of vitamin C and vitamin E in your diet that does it. So it's good belly, bad belly was just looking at, the role that gut bacteria plays. And then before we get deep into probiotics and prebiotics and all that kind of stuff, kind of sit there thinking, why is your gut bacteria need to be altered in the first place? Like, what are we doing that's altered that? And that kind of came to the conclusion of, like, your gut bacteria really enjoy fruit and berries and stuff like that, and we just don't eat much of that.
Yeah.
We eat a lot of processed foods, not in the processed like McDonald's way, but just processed in just about everything, right? Like, most of the food we eat has been treated to some degree. And unless you're in the habit of it, a bowl full of berries, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, a bowl full isn't something you'd normally go for unless someone prepared it for you, which is really ridiculous because preparing it just means washing it. Like, it's not hard to make.
Yeah.
We just kind of forget about it. But it seems that fruit and vegetables play a fundamental role, go figure, in having a sort of a healthy gut bacteria. And so if anybody's worried about their gut, my suggestion is, before you start doing crazy, funky stuff with your diet, just try fruit. Like, it's just try some berries. Like, just add that in and see what happens. So.
Yeah. But there's so many diets out there right now that, like, absolutely forbid fructose, which is the main sugar in fruit, and glucose, which is in dates and things like that. I run on that stuff. I eat a ton of fruit. I know you do too. So when people tell me, like, oh, dude, fruit's the devil, what are you supposed to believe here, Well,
the hard part on that one is just breaking it down to the rational side of it, right? So, for instance, I like the fact you said that fructose is the sugar in fruit, and that's kind of true. I mean, it's called fructose because it's found in fruit, but it's not all the sugar in fruit. So, to give you an idea, let's divide this up. Okay. I'm doing quick math in my head, so excuse me if it's all. If you hear like a hamster running fast in a wheel, that's just. So a cup of blackberries, we're talking about 60 calories, like 3.5 grams of fructose. A cup of blueberries, bit denser, 80 calories, 7 grams of fructose. A cup of raspberries, 60 calories, 3 grams of fructose. So if you did all together, that's 3 cups of berries in a bowl, right? That's roughly 200 calories. Be almost 5 grams of protein, 37 grams of carbs, 13 grams of fructose. So you're looking at much less fructose there than you'd find in a average can of pop. So not a giant gallon of pop, but like just a can. But you'd also be looking at just an extremely high amount of fiber, like probably 18, 20 grams.
Yeah.
And just a giant whack of polyphenols, which are the sort of the health promoting chemicals found in colored fruits, like all those berries. So they contain fructose, but they're not fructose bombs, right? So
I feel like that gets left out of the conversation, is that you've got this whole nutritional complex that comes with it's like a perfectly packaged, proportioned, ready-made thing for human beings to be eating.
Yeah. Did you guys have the candy nerds in the States?
Oh, dude. I grew up on that.
So that's what, colored sugar is. It's a nerd. There's a very big difference between a blue nerd and a blueberry. Right. So, and in fact, if I don't know the complete ins and outs of the latest rules of ketogenic dieting, but I'm pretty sure 37 grams of carbs across a day would be acceptable. Right. In fact, I think a lot of them are fine with like 50. So you're closing in on like 5 cups of berries fit into a ketogenic diet. But that's so you know what? You can probably deal with at least adding a cup of berries. Right. You know, and if you don't know where to add it, if you're having dessert, you're having ice cream, throw them on that. Like just find include them, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because now we're thinking about how it's not complex. We're going right back to food again. I'm not telling you to get 1.82 milligrams of gallic acid equivalent from polyphenols. I'm saying eat some berries. They're tasty. Yeah. So it's just always bringing it back into a context that people can work with.
So there's a lot of talk these days about the gut being a second brain. What can you explain that to us specifically? Like what does that exactly mean, and how do we optimize that second brain?
All right. So I guess the 2 ways of looking at it is your mind controls your gut, and it tells you when you're hungry, and then your gut does the work for your mind, or your gut tells your mind when it's hungry and causes you to go and get food, right? So there's 2 ways of looking at it, and most people agree it's probably somewhere in the middle. They work together. So your gut seems to be able to send messages directly to your brain, and your brain directly to your gut, and they synchronize. So instead of saying a second brain, maybe think of a second part of your brain, the third lobe, something like that. And they synchronize a whole host of chemical processes in your body. So we can get down to talking about exactly how they affect even dopamine and serotonin and the conversion of glucose and fructose into short chain fatty acids, which even can be turned into amino acids. Or we could just say that like these things, your body works together. And the idea that you have a mind, but you're in a body kind of thing is like, well, I can control my arms, but I can't really control my thoughts. So I'm almost a body that has a mind. So let's just split difference and say we're just one big thing. So,
love it. Yeah.
Your gut with your mind. So if your gut's really messed up, that's like saying if your third lobe, a third of your brain is kind of messy. And that's not cool. No one would like that idea. So it's sort of treating your gut like it is part of your mind, realizing they do work together, realizing that there's foods that you crave that just pretending you don't crave them is probably not going to do anything. And that the gut and the bacteria residing in your gut, which sounds really gross, but it's just sort of part of being a human, do play a role in the metabolism and physiology of the rest of your body. They orchestrate it in a similar way to your brain. And we'll eventually find out they orchestrate it in a similar way to just how everything in your body orchestrates. So to think that there's anything in your body that's inert and doesn't play a role in somehow directing some of your physiology, I think is asinine. Like we used to think that fat was just stored energy, and it is made of carbon, but it also relays messages back to your body on how your body should act. Same with muscle, same with blood, same with bone, right? It's all parts of the whole. And I think we like to, it's a very sciencey thing to do, to rip something out of the whole and examine it in sort of this, space ether and be like, that's what this does. And it's sticking in the hole, right? And so that's what we've been doing for 100 years. And we just keep coming back to the fact that maybe we can't look at the body that way. And it's a whole, and little pieces do their role as part of the whole. And I know that got really kind of weird, but again, that's why spending a lot of time doing in-depth reading about this stuff, unless you're like me and you get paid to do it, is probably a waste of time. It's a hobby, but it's not one that really helps. It's kind of like, as much as you want to read Road and Track, it gets you no closer to owning a Ferrari. You just know a lot about the engine.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Bookends. This is AJ, and of course I'm here with the star of the show, Trev, who got us this interview, conducted this interview. I'm excited to listen to this interview. It's one of those times where I was not present and have not yet had a chance to listen, so I'm really excited. But I also, this is going to be kind of selfish, but the entire IAP team is currently being interviewed over at the Hollywood Hustle podcast. And the reason I bring it up is because in the second part of Grace Gordon's interview, they do talk about health, nutrition, body shaming, etc. So it might be an interesting supplement to this, although obviously Brad's focuses more on the science side, the fasting side, the nutrition side of things, as opposed to the industry side of things. Unless you got into that, Trev. Did you get into that at all?
By proxy, yeah. By proxy. I mean, it's impossible to talk about this stuff and not get into the sort of the mindset of it and the emotional relationship we all have with this stuff. So yeah, we do address it, but in a roundabout way.
Right on. Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, check that out over at Hollywood. Just do a search for Hollywood Hustle in your favorite podcasting app, and then we've got Trevor's interview is up, Grace's interview is up, my interview is coming, and then we did a roundtable with Trevor, myself, and the two co-hosts over there, Michael and Daniel. So pretty cool, fun stuff. And then we've got more from Brad coming over the next episode or two. So stay tuned to that. Trev, what is your pick of the week?
So my pick of the week is something that I picked a while ago, but there's a new edition of it out. And I've been on a little bit of a journey lately with my health. We can talk more about this when we do a review episode, a quarterly review episode, which should be coming up timeline-wise soon. But I picked up the book Thrive Again by a guy named Brendan Brazier. That book has been out for 10 years now, and it has been, I should say, for many months of these past 10 years, my go-to nutrition Bible. As I sort of just said in the interview and just now, I've always sort of been interested in how things work when it comes to health and nutrition, and I've always sort of liked to experiment and try things out. And I've tried a lot of different diets. Brad has a great saying on his Instagram. It says, "If it fits your morals." Turns out he and I are both vegan, which is pretty awesome. But so I've always experimented within that framework of like do no harm or as little harm as possible, tread lightly, try and focus on the whole foods, that kind of thing. And I always come back to Thrive. I come back to this book by Brendan Brazier, and the new edition has like a couple dozen new recipes. There's a foreword by Hugh Jackman. And I was kind of like, is it worth it to purchase this book all over again for just a few recipes and this foreword by Hugh Jackman? So I got it from the library and I was reading it, and there is actually probably 100 new pages of content. New science, new approaches, new mindset stuff. The recipes are killer. I just love it, man. I've just been digging it all over again. So I would be remiss if I did not recommend this to our listeners, whether you're vegan or not. Like, don't even let that be part of the conversation. Just check it out, because it is a top-level, world-class education in nutrition and specifically his philosophy, which is what he calls high net gain nutrition. So basically, the whole diet is centered around foods that are very easy for your body to assimilate. So the more of those you eat, the less taxing digestion is on your body, and the more energy you'll have to recover, to repair yourself, to go out and do fun, cool things. And every time I come back to this, I'm like, why did I ever stop eating this way? This is just amazing. And like I said, I'll talk more about this in an upcoming episode, but I had a little bit of sort of a personal health crisis, and I was like, I got to do something here. And so I turned back to this book, and within a week, I noticed massive changes.
Wow.
So I can't recommend it enough. Thrive, 10th Anniversary Edition by Brendan Brazier. Now, he's got several different books, but this one that is linked on our website, they all have the word Thrive in them. But this one on the website is confusing. Yeah, there's like a recipe. There's 2 recipe books, and there's a fitness book, and they all sort of emphasize different aspects of his philosophy. There's much overlap between them, but this one is the sort of most comprehensive sort of starter version of everything.
Got it.
So, yeah, check it out. It's definitely it will level up your health if you manage to follow even 10% of it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You said the magic words, Hugh Jackman.
I know.
So
I knew that was gonna get you.
I'm in. Yeah. So in other words, you didn't mention Hugh Jackman to talk about what's new in the book. You mentioned it to reel me in.
Yeah. I was like, I think AJ will perk up when he hears this part.
Oh yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. I can't click on it right now because of the my current internet situation, but I will come back to the Amazon link on our website and check that out.
You know what I appreciate about Hugh Jackman's forward in this book as well is he flat out says, he's like, look, I'm not a vegan. I don't eat a vegan diet. And he's like, but I probably will be because I feel great. And when I follow Brendan's advice, things really take a turn for the better and my cravings go away and all the, he just kind of outlines what he's experienced and how reluctant he was or resistant he was to, getting involved in this whole conversation and sort of cluttering up his head with all this information. Because he says it in the foreword, he's not a guy that is inherently sort of interested in going down that rabbit hole. So it's a pretty honest and exciting way to start this 10th edition. I was quite charmed by Hugh Jackman's foreword.
Hugh Jackman was charming?
Yeah, I know.
I'm shocked.
So what's your pick of the week?
My pick of the week is the HBO original documentary called If You're Not in the Obit, Eat Breakfast. And that title refers to a joke that Carl Reiner now tells in either when he's doing sort of stand-up or having conversations with people, on stage, kind of interview style. He has this joke where he says, I get up every morning and I read the obituaries, and if I'm not in there, I have breakfast. Which is such a funny, hilarious, speaking of charming joke. And I love him. I love Carl Reiner. I love him as an artist, as a person, as a filmmaker, as a comedian. And this documentary is just about being a nonagerian. Is that how it's said? Everybody who's in the documentary is 90 years old or older. And he interviews Mel Brooks, Stan Lee, Betty White, Kirk Douglas. The show that Kirk Douglas did at our job, Trevor, is in this documentary. Like, there's footage from the Kirk Douglas Theater in this documentary. It's cool. Crazy. And then a whole bunch of people that you've never heard of, in air quotes, because they're not celebrities or whatever, but they're just living their best life. There's this guy who's still going skydiving at 90 plus. This woman who teaches yoga at 90 plus and does like ballroom dancing. It's unbelievable. Like, these people are such inspirations. It will just lift your heart, inspire you. It might even make you shed a tear. It is an incredible, I hesitate to call it a documentary because most documentaries are about a particular, subject and the study of that subject. And this one is really just about, being vital after 90. Yes, that could be considered the subject, but it's really just a bunch of really interesting stories or vignettes of these different people that he interviews. So I loved it. I'm actually going to watch it again because, first time through was just kind of like taking it in. And I really want to soak up their advice and sort of tools and what do they do to like keep themselves healthy and strong and vibrant, and what kind of things they're sort of into as far as creativity goes. So it's a beautiful documentary. It's called If You're Not in the Obit, Eat Breakfast. I guess if you have an HBO Now subscription, you can watch it or stream it. I don't know if there's any other way to see it, so I apologize if you do not have an HBO subscription, but maybe you can, I don't know, borrow one. I mean, you've been watching Game of Thrones, right, people? Just go watch this as well.
Right on. Awesome. All right. This is something to check out. I'm excited to look into this. Very cool.
I think you're gonna love it, Trev. I thought about you quite a lot when I was watching it. So
cool.
Especially since it was, partially filmed at our job.
Yeah. Rock on. So we also have a team member pick of the week from Jen, our production coordinator, who is always crushing it. And her pick of the week is the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend in general, but more specifically the song called A Diagnosis. It was in an episode that aired in November of 2017. She says it's a really great show. She has actually has talked about it to us quite a bit, but she says this was particularly impactful for her because when she was a teenager, she was diagnosed with having depression, and she assumed the doctors knew what they were talking about, but none of the medications they put her on seemed to work. So when she was in her 20s, she was also told she had some other issues, got medications for that as well. Things just didn't feel right. And so it really took until her 30s before she sort of figured out that things were misdiagnosed, that she actually wasn't suffering from these things that she had been told that she was. So while she still struggles with a lot of this stuff, she says things have been a lot better for her since she found out exactly what battles she is fighting. And that's what this song is about, the song A Diagnosis. So she's very happy to know what boxes she finally actually is able to check so that she can do the specific work of healing. So there's a link to this song as a YouTube video. There's a link to it in the show notes for this website, for this episode, I should say. Wow, Trevor, think before you speak. You guys know what I'm saying. Jen says that, everyone has mental health struggles, and that's very true. I think all of us are fighting a hard battle. And there still is some stigma around the mental battles that we all fight every day. It can be sort of seen as a sign of weakness to say I'm struggling emotionally or struggling mentally. I'm looking forward to the day when we have a little more compassion for that kind of thing in each other. But Jen says that shows like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, believe it or not, are really helping to make things better and easier to accept, and that's just a badass thing. And plus, it's a great song. So check it out. Link in the show notes for the episode that you're listening to on our website. Whew, got that one out. For this song, A Diagnosis. So that is Thrive 10th Anniversary Edition by Brendan Brazier. If you're not in the obit, Eat Breakfast, an HBO documentary that comes to us from AJ. And then, of course, this song, A Diagnosis, from the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Link to the video of that is on our website. That does it for episode 306. Anything else before we boogie out of here?
Nah, man, we're good.
All right, guys, thanks for listening. Today's episode was produced and hosted by me, Trevor Algott, and, of course, AJ Meyer. Team IAP also includes Jen Levin and Grace Gordon.
Visit us online at insideacting.net to sign up for our email dispatch and get all of our episodes. They're all there on our website still. We're also on social media and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts.
And you guys can directly support the production of Inside Acting with either a one-time financial contribution or an ongoing monthly contribution. Just visit us at insideacting.net to learn more about how to do that.
That's it. Wow. Good episode, man. Just like solid content we're bringing these folks. I'm proud of us. That's episode 306. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. And in the meantime, go to the gym.